I've always struggled to make soft and dreamy watercolor portraits, but I think I finally cracked the secret. So what did I do? I made one change. I used water. That might seem pretty obvious, right? I mean, it's called watercolor. But water is so versatile, and when we use it to its fullest potential, we can create some of the most beautiful and dreamy portraits. So today, I want to share with you a few ways that I've learned to use water to make this soft portrait. My first tip is to pre-wet the paper. For this painting, I actually pre-wetted both sides of the painting before I started recording, and then I re-wet the top whenever I hit record. Wetting the back of the painting actually lets it retain moisture for longer, while pre-wetting the front makes the paint move and disperse really smoothly. So as you watch this painting, pay attention to where I make brush strokes at the edges of the painting. Because of the wet layer, the paint will actually disperse and create these soft fades that you wouldn't get normally. This has been kind of a breakthrough portrait for me in terms of making dreamy and soft portraits. I really like having brushstrokes visible in my normal paintings, and I struggle to make soft looks sometimes. I usually don't ever do a wet layer initially. Sometimes I will only wet parts of the paper, but this time I really wanted to try and do something different, and so I wet the whole paper, and I think that's what helped me make this soft looking portrait. And I think I captured it pretty well, but what do you think? Here's a second tip for you. When you have a wet painting, it's really easy to lift areas that you don't want paint on. You've probably seen me do some of this already, but I found it really effective when I wanted to make some abstract details in the blanket. I wanted to include some of the white flowers that are in the actual quilt. So what I did is I dropped in some clean water, and then I just let the water do its work. And then eventually I took some toilet paper and I lifted the paint off of it, and it created this perfect transition I wanted to do. Another tip I have for you is to use clean water to soften edges. It's really important to give a painting a variety of soft and hard edges. It just makes it dynamic. So if you load your brush with clean water and then dab out some of the excess on like a paper towel, you can create more soft transitions on areas where it's kind of been hardened. You can see me do some of this in different places, such as along the skin and in the hair. Here's another fun tip for you. Sometimes just let the colors mix on the paper. The water and the paint will end up making these really fascinating blends and mixes between the different colors that will add to this dreamy and soft style that you might be trying to go for. I don't always mix on the paper. Sometimes I like to just mix on the palette, but when I do want a soft look, I will let the water take over. And so I'll take a pre-mixed color and put it on the paper, and then I'll bring another mixed color and bring it on the paper and let them blend naturally together. Like most artists, I really struggle to paint hands, but I actually think this one turned out pretty good in this painting. I especially like how I developed the depth of the fingers that are cast in shadow that aren't really at the forefront, so keep an eye out for that. I will have some comments later on in this video to talk about those. If you want your painting to look nice and loose, something that may be helpful is to simplify the painting as much as you can. Try to be intentional with your brush strokes and keep them at a minimum. As you develop as an artist, you'll become more confident in your brush strokes, and this is something that I'm still trying to work on, but I find that whenever I can just put down one stroke at a time and just keep it like that, the painting comes out more fresh and nicer sometimes. Another way you can simplify is by not worrying about the nitty-gritty details of a painting, but instead imply detail through simple strokes. An example in this painting is with how I did the stuffed bunny fur. With the shadow I implied detail, but I didn't worry about every single strand being visible. Here's a closer look at me painting the second layer of hair. I find that it can be a challenge to find a balance between being detailed and realistic and soft and loose when it comes to the hair, and I think I've captured a pretty good balance, so I wanted to show you how I like to do hair. When this happened, I freaked out. My hand just slipped and got blue paint right on the forehead, which is exactly where I did not want that to be. And it's phthalo blue paint, which is really staining, which means that no matter how much I lift it up, there's going to be a slight blue undertone there. Now thankfully the paper was still slightly damp, and I was able to put some clear water on it, and I had tissue paper right next to me to where I could just dab it and get it out. But even though I got it to a point where I was comfortable with it, when I start to put in other layers of color over this part, you're going to notice that's slightly darker there. It didn't ruin the painting, but it definitely changed what I was wanting to do there, which is kind of disappointing. Has anything like that ever happened to you where you just painted something that you didn't mean to? Let me know in the comments what you did. I find with watercolor that the ugly stage lasts until I start to put in my darks towards the end of the painting. So as I add in these eyelashes and little dark accents here and there, it ends up really bringing the painting together and starts to make it actually look decent. The two fingers that are in shadow here were kind of tough for me to develop. I decided to use negative painting to paint the form of the fingers and the fingernail, and when I first painted this, I thought it didn't look that great. But now looking back, I think I kind of nailed it, and I wish I would have been more confident with that before kind of covering it up with a darker color. You'll see that I didn't like these patterned strokes here, so I ended up removing them. Here's a quick time-lapse of the entire painting process. There will be a couple final shots of this video where you'll see some of the adjustments I made from that. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like. I'm going to be releasing more videos soon, so if you're interested, please subscribe to stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun and learned something.